So welcome to Precision Golf. We've got a product review that we're going to do on something which has created quite a lot of interest recently, and it is the AUTOFLEX shaft. Now, I want to thank Mike and Sean for getting this in and giving it to us to test out. It's a fascinating shaft. It's a shaft that's had a lot of interest from following a review by some friends of ours over in Canada at TXG, Ian and Matt doing a review on this, and something which really has to be played and swung to kind of be believed as to how it actually feels and how it actually performs. So really fascinating product. It's over made in Korea. It's very, very high quality materials. It's a completely different sensation to swing than anything else that anyone will have ever hit. It's got some interesting kind of specs and it has Korea hidden technology in. Now, as of now, I'm not aware of anyone knowing exactly what those materials are. What we do know is it's a very, very soft flexing shaft. So in terms of relative to where, the relative flexes that we're familiar with, this is going to play a heck of a lot softer. And that's actually something that when we come to reviewing the performance of it, that's very, very noticeable when hitting it. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to be putting it into my own club head, testing it against my own gamer driver, and then also getting a little bit of a data in a couple of other club heads as well. And just to give an idea to everyone watching as to what one can expect from this product and actually how it might practically be used and the kind of player that might well get the most out of it. So we'll get some data with it, get some numbers and comparisons, and then we can let you know what we feel about it and the kind of player we think it's going to suit. So conducted a bit of testing with my current gamer, which is the XC6 shaft and M4, and then used the AUTOFLEX in this head. And based on the results, which we'll look at in a moment, looked at the sim driver and also the Sub-Zero, Maverick Sub-Zero, based on they're some of the most popular heads this year, but also due to the data we got being some of the lower spin numbers. So we'll have a look at the data now and run you through what we saw. So tested with each of the three heads with both the XC6 and the AUTOFLEX shaft. And we've got them grouped in terms of the M4 head, the Sim head, and then the Mavericks with XC and then AUTOFLEX in order that each way down. So the one thing that's noticeable is with each of the combinations, we've gone from 108.9 to 109.3, 108.3 to 110, 108.6 to 110.5. So with the AUTOFLEX, I've picked up speed with each combination. So there's no doubt that it's faster. You know, I can move it faster. It's a little bit lighter. Higher balance point lets me get a bit more speed. And as a result, ball speed's kicked up by between 1.5 and 2.5 miles an hour, pretty much, with each of the three combinations. So there's definitely more speed. The one, particularly with my current head, the one caveat to that was I went from 2.2 on spin to 2.690 on spin. So whilst I gained speed, I actually lost a bit of distance because it spun more. And that was part of what led us to test with the low spin nature of the Sim and the Maverick Sub-Zero, because with this shaft in particular, it does launch a little bit higher. That's the one thing that was noticeable with every combination. The launch angle's up by a good half a degree with each combination, almost a degree with my current head. So in order to get the best out of the shaft, we have to go low spin with the heads. And so there is less differentiation on spin between the other two heads than my current one. And now that might well be where the current heads are a little bit better off center. So I lost more performance on spin with the M4 being an older head. Going to the Sim and the Maverick, the spin stayed much more consistent. So what we did see is where I lost 3.5 yards with my current head, with the other two I gained 3 yards with the Sim and 7 yards with the Maverick. So in terms of average distance, the longest two were with the Sim and the Maverick. over my current gamer, I picked up a grand total of 3 yards. But there is a bit more distance there. What you can also see here is that from a general dispersion point of view, the yellower with my existing club, it's the grouping, which you would hope with my own current gamer, the grouping on the solid hits is very, very tight, and there are a couple where I've been throwing myself at it trying to get more distance there. But generally speaking, the dispersion hasn't been hurt too much. So whilst, yes, that is a very soft flex of shaft, and from a feel point of view, that's something that takes some getting used to. It's not something that you're likely to find you can just stand up and swing and hit away and straight away get used to, simply because it's such a different sensation. But actually, when you get into impact, it's very, very stable. The dispersion is very, very solid, and there isn't a lot of spread to it. It's actually more the way it affects the way you move through the ball than actually the loading and the kind of the what you might perceive as a flipping of the shaft. It's actually very solid on dispersion. So I think the long and short of it is that it's something that there's definitely something in it. It's something that we can see that there's a data gain from a speed point of view. Yes, it's a little bit lighter. We actually cut this slightly longer as well. So yes, there are caveats to, yes, there's a bit more speed, but it's not speed with massive dispersion, which is a plus point. I think it's quite a polarizing shaft in that you're either going to absolutely be able to get used to the feedback and the sensation of moving it and swinging it, where as you take the club away, it kind of feels like the club stays at the ball a little bit, and that the club head lags behind. And that's something you're either going to be able to get used to very quickly and not really, and after the initial period, not really notice, or it's something that could potentially kind of feels so different that it might freak you out a little bit. And there are going to be players that are going to, I think, a more kind of uniform plane, shallower plane through the back of the ball, and really someone who's used to that kind of 55, 60 gram weight profile is more likely to take to it. I think if you're used to a heavier shaft weight, there is that side of inner fitting bay, hitting shot after shot after shot, where you can tune it in and get used to it and get that repetition going, versus that one shot you get on course. So for me, with my own club, where I have a bit of a change in plane and a bit of rotation through the ball, that bit of extra weight helped me when each time we switched and I went back to that shaft, my first shot was more stable. It took me a couple to find the timing with the AUTOFLEX. That's more just the way my swing works. It's not going to be the case for everyone. But the other element to this with this shaft, it is a deer shaft. It's an 800-pound shaft plus. So it's something that is going to take a little bit of tuning, and I think from a fitting point of view, if we were to get them into the studio, which needs to say, let us know if you're interested. If enough people kind of really register a genuine interest in it, where we can absolutely do that, or plan to do that. It's something that needs, head weight, head style, tuning into the shaft for someone. It's not, I don't see it forming kind of more part of a traditional fitting. I think it's more you get fit for the shaft. In its current iteration, I think it's very, very particular, and you need to spend time zoning it in. But as we can see from the data, I gain speed. That's part of what it's all about. There is an upkick in speed. I think with a little more tuning in, I could probably pick up on average maybe 7 or 8 yards. It's just whether that's something I want to take onto the course and feel that I can get the consistency with on the course. Is that enough? Is that enough change for me to make that change? Is that enough benefit to make that change? But ultimately, that's going to vary player to player. For me, definite gain in speed. Questionable how much distance I'm going to gain on course when you've got the one go at it. But really fascinating product. Really, it's something that's going to be, I think, a little bit Marmite. But when it works, I think it's really going to work for someone. And I think it's that kind of very good or not so great kind of performance. I don't think there's going to be a real in between. But yeah, something that's been great fun to test out. I want to thank Mike and Sean again for letting us have it, and be fascinating to hear your views on it. So maybe we'll get it in the studio.